Over 32 years experience representing healthcare professionals. He's the founder of Chapman Law Group, a multi-state firm dedicated to health law and the representation of health professionals.
Some duties, practice within the standard of care. Now, that's a nebulous term, right? Because who knows what the standard of care is? If I divided the room down halfway, 50% on this side, 50% on that side, this side said do A, this side said do B, we don't have a standard of care. You have to have 51% of the people, or a clear plurality, that says this is the appropriate treatment. Why do I bring that up? That's a medical malpractice issue. I bring it up because if you comply with the standard of care, you comply with just about everything I'm going to tell you. And one of the things the standard of care is, and the oath that you took, is to do the best thing you can do for the patient, right? So it's one of the basic rules. This down here, I don't know if any of you do surgery, but a couple years ago, about 6, 7, 8 years ago, there were a lot of problems with wrong side surgeries and other kinds of things. So the board came out with a very clear rule for timeout. We call it timeout, where you have to have a certain practice where you go in, somebody else certifies who the patient is, and then this and that, then you take a timeout, then you look at it again to make sure. I have literally handled 3 or 4 cases where things like the wrong leg were cut off. It's not a pleasant thing to do. And when there's really, well, I thought that was the patient. Because it's hard to see when they're all covered up and they're on a gurney and the anesthesiologist has already got the person, under, and you come in ready to go and you did it wrong. Oh, this is another good one. Don't be afraid to apologize. But here's the thing I want to have you walk away with. You can apologize. It's kind of like the politician that apologizes for getting caught, but doesn't apologize for what they actually did. Don't say you did anything wrong. Don't admit to anything. Just say you're sorry. I'm sorry it turned out this way. I'm sorry that your loved one died. I'm sorry this. I'm sorry that. Because empathy, it's been proven, will reduce about 30% of all lawsuits. Just because you care. Many of the people that I defend, the plaintiff, and I defend the doctor, so the plaintiff is always, well, he was just an asshole. And they carry, excuse me for swearing, but they carry that all the way through. They're mad at you because you had terrible bedside manner. But don't admit. Don't say, I'm sorry I gave the wrong dose of medication and your baby died. That would not be a good thing. Party admission will carry you all the way through court and you will lose big. But you can say, I'm really sorry your baby died. We tried everything we could, etc. And make them feel comfortable. Supervised subordinates. Some of you might have medical director contracts where to make a little extra money, you're the medical director of the urgent care, which there's a nurse practitioner or a PA or something there. Well, you're a supervisor, so make sure you're doing some supervision. Look at some records, show up once in a while. I can't tell you the number of times that I have problems. Now, most of this comes when the clinic is not doing the right thing, like they're caught up in pain management and they're just selling pills, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the medical director says, well, I've never even been there. But you're the medical director. You're going to be responsible because you're supposed to be overseeing what the person's done. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be there every day. It doesn't mean you even have to show up. It means you have to know what's going on, call them, talk to them, review some records. My daughter was an attorney in our practice, and she married a doctor and left, and now they've opened up a couple urgent care clinics, and they have another doctor that's a supervision over one, and she was telling me the other day, she says, I can't even get him to come in and look at records. He wants to get his check, but he won't even come in and look at his records. What should I do? And I'm like, well, you're a lawyer, get another medical director, because he has to do, or she has to do, at least to protect your license, right? You have to do something for the money that you're earning. Physician duties. These are just the basic things. Respect privacy, Clothes, you have to wear your badge, you have to wear your name, they have to know you're a doctor. You can't go around with Marcus Welby when you're James Doe, so that they pin it on the other doctor or something. Financial disclosures, those are big in your offices. If you have if you're in a big clinic or an office or something, you'll give them out. If there's a potential or you have some financial relationship with an entity. I had to file one here, that anybody that is selling me products for this or that I don't have a relationship, because you could be tainted. Where did all that come from? It came from DME companies with orthopedic surgeons, basically giving them all kinds of freebies for them to use their products when they're doing hips and knees and all kinds of other things. And so you can't do that. You have to tell them that you have a financial interest in the product you're putting in their hip, or whatever that product might be. And there's lots of other things it could be. Oh, this is for your insurance. So can you be uninsured in Florida? Sure, as long as you're self-insured, meaning you have to have either a letter of credit to show up to $100,000 or $250,000 if you're a surgeon. You have to have the money in the bank, just a letter or an escrow account set up with the money in there, or you have to buy the basic insurance so that you have some insurance. You don't have to buy a $3 million policy or a $2 million policy or any of that. But I will tell you this, depending upon the risk of the service you provide, in other words, OBGYN, highest risk ever. Dental malpractice, pretty low risk. You're not dentist, but that's pretty low risk. Basic primary care is kind of a low risk. But if you've accumulated assets over the years and you're becoming more and more financially comfortable, you probably want to have enough insurance to at least protect those. Now, most lawyers won't go after you privately unless you have a lot of money and it's a huge case, because it's really hard then to pierce the corporate veil and trace after you and stuff. So have enough insurance. That's my saying. This is just with your profiles. I guess the only reason that I put this up there is we get a lot of times where profiles aren't updated, and then the board comes down on you and they file a complaint. And then you get the complaint set aside because you corrected it. But here's the problem with that. Just make sure it's up, because once the board files a complaint, you're on the board's radar. And if they file one, they'll file more because they're watching you. It's like the IRS. If you've never been audited, the chances of ever being audited are pretty slim. If you've been audited, the chances of being re-audited are pretty high. So just make sure that your profile is updated. And where it happens is when you change services. You change locations. You move from Manatee to take a job in Sarasota, to go to Pensacola, to do whatever. And you really want to watch this too with Medicare and Medicaid. So when you're not Medicaid, with Medicare, when you're licensed with CMS, and then you change locations and you do things, you have to let them know so that your license is properly changed. If not, eventually the license or your certification gets removed, and now you're practicing without, and they don't. They have a standing policy. They will not go back and retroactively renew it. So you're going to have problems with that. You got to really, really watch that. What's the big deal with record keeping? The old adage that really isn't true, but it says if it's not written down, it didn't happen, right? So you want to make sure that it's written down and written down legibly. Now there's problems with records, because we now have EMR records, which are a blessing and a curse. Filling in the box doesn't give you the understanding or allow you to document the understanding of what was really going on. And here's the rub. If you do get in trouble with the government, what the government's going to say when you have an EMR is, all you did was check boxes. I said, well, of course I did. Because the Affordable Care Act mandated that we go to EMRs, and EMRs, that's all you do is check boxes. And they don't want to give on that. So it's a problem, and you've got to watch it. So any EMR should allow you to free write some things in there, but when you have just checking the boxes on EMRs, it gets difficult. And then later on, we were involved in an audit I think we finished it just a couple months ago and resolved the case. But the big beef was all these records are substantially the same. Well, of course they're substantially the same. It's an EMR. You only get so many choices. You have to check the box. I mean, how many different ways on an EMR can you describe bronchitis? You know, you check a box or two and you move on. And it's a problem. But I think we'll kind of work through this as we go because it also has a lot of benefits. The benefits are easy transfer, you know, other kinds of things. But be careful with your EMRs. The better your treatment record, where we are with here. Maintain your records in confidence. We'll talk about that in a second. But the better your treatment record, the better you will get out of a medical malpractice, or you will get out of a medical malpractice claim. Okay? A lot of medical malpractice claims, you might have done the right thing, but the records aren't clear enough. I have an issue with an anesthesiologist that we're working on right now. The whole event went wrong, had a bad outcome, but the records just don't describe what happened. He's adamant, no, this is what happened, but the records say this is what happened or they're blank. So it's hard to prove what happened. And when you're doing an office setting, I don't know if most of you are in an office setting or what, it's quick to be really quick. Don't be really quick. Take the time, and I know it's complicated. You say, okay, I'd love to take the time. I get paid $42.50 for spending a half hour. How do I support my family? I know the rub with all that, but you have to take the time to make sure it's documented properly, okay? To make sure you're doing that.